Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you another deck profile on Cosmic Mythos, this time Ramp Dragon. This is one of the decks that we believe competing for the top spot of best deck in format, so let's just get right into the deck itself. Alright, so this is the deck. First off, big shout out to Pressure, playtest partner of the group and friend of the channel. He put in the most work into Dragon, so a lot of these Dragon lists that'll be popping up kind of came out of ideas that Pressure floated with us and playtested with us, so thank you so much, Pressure. Alright, into the deck itself, we're still playing Bellringer Angel. It is a good card. It helps us slow down the game. One of the big things with Ramp Dragon is that we want to get to the critical point of turn 8, or not turn 8 necessarily, but 8 play points or more when we can just start controlling the board like it's no one's business. So Bellringer slows down the game a little bit, adds consistency on draw, as well as we have the Evo to remove any small followers that we need to, or do an extra 2 damage somewhere. Blazing Breath, I mean, it's kind of broken. We all know that. It's just an Angelic Snipe that randomly becomes Angelic Snipe for 4 instead. If you're playing Dragon, you should always be playing that card for the most part. Dragon's Nest is a new card that on the surface level, you might look at it and this isn't a very powerful card, but this card is insane. So early game, we don't always have a lot of things going on if we're not ramping and so forth, or if our opponent isn't really interacting with us. Dragon's Nest, whenever we refer cracking some eggs in Dragon, this is the card we're talking about. It helps shore up the aggro matchups by giving us health when we need to. If we're able to sit on this till we hit overflow, which is usually pretty easy, this is just free filter for our deck so we can get to our big guys faster, more consistency on finding Sybils, things like that. Once we get a little further in the game, anything we want, basically this just adds consistency, more life total, along with giving us something to do early game when we're in matches where we're playing control or something like that, and our opponent isn't really interacting with our board that much, or we have anything to interact with in general. Card is pretty cracked. Dragon Oracle, the busted card of Dragon. You just get a ramp. It's a good card. Dragon Warrior here. This card, obviously 2-for-1s, helps us clear some things out early game. Gives us the extra breathing room early on, especially once on turn 2 ramp. Turn 3 we get a Dragon Warrior Evo if we're going first, which is really big. Very solid card overall, and we play 2 of the Evo. You can swap this out for the armed dragon version of the card, which might be slightly better in some cases if you're able to stick another armed follower, or give something, any follower on the board, armed to its traits, so you can deal 4 instead. Because in a lot of cases, some of the cards that come on 3 and Evo will just be 4 health followers, and doing 4 instead of 3 sometimes is pretty big. But Dragon Warrior is always consistent, so we're just sticking with that here. Still a solid card overall. Goblin Princess is a new card addition to Cosmic Mythos. In playtesting, especially when you first look at this card, you're like, this card looks not that great, but when you play it, it's actually insane. So on turns 3, you can just drop Goblin Princess, pull out a Bellringer Evo, and then Evo Goblin Princess with the Evo point if need be, and then you get a Goblin King token, which is a 6/6 ward that gets +1/+1 to your other Goblinoids. So if Goblin Princess sticks around, it's gonna get a little bit buffer. This helps slow down the aggression too. Whenever we need a ward, we can slam this out, pull out a Bellringer Angel, and then swing in with this also to remove something. This card is just super good, and if you're not trying this card out at some point, especially if you're playing Bellringer Angels, I implore you to do it, because it feels so good when you start playing with the card. It's great. Sybil of the Waterworm. This is a card that is insane. I definitely, when I first looked at this card, I already thought it was good, but I didn't think it was as good as I thought it was, basically. So this is an extra ramp for our deck, consistency wise. But what's really nice about this card is, well, the time you want to play this card the most is on turn 7. 7 will push us to 8, then it goes to our turn and go to 9. It lets us skip that entire turn 8, which is always an issue for this deck, because there's not a lot going on turn 8 that you really want to be playing. Sorry, turn 7 that is. Pushing us to turn 8 means we get to drop Israfel from hand earlier, which is really, really big. It just gives us more to do, essentially, right? But the second part of this card, at the start of your end phase, give your leader +1 health, but if Overflow is active, you get +2 instead. So early on, if we're playing against a very aggro-centric deck, sometimes we just need to live. So just dropping this on 3 to heal 1 at the end of every turn is pretty big against those aggro matchups. That means they have to answer this card. Otherwise, every turn, we're just healing a little bit more, And a lot of the times, we just got to get to that critical mass where we can start slamming con flag, things like that, just to control the board. And then once Israfil comes down, this will heal us back up again and start clearing the board for us. Yeah, this card is just insane overall. If you're not playing it in Ramp Dragon, I don't know why you're playing Ramp Dragon then. Card's insane. Art is also insane on the card. Serpent's Wrath, we all know what it is. It's a 3-drop 5 damage spell, which is really big. There's a lot of random things against Forest that we just need to kill that are 5 damage or 5 health to get removed. And then obviously Overflow, draw a card randomly, because why not, your dragon? So this is an interesting tech. A lot of time we're talking early on about Nights Away, and we're like, is this card good? Is it not? Is it? We can't really figure out the exact, way it is like really amazing. But what's really nice in this deck is if we get into a Grandy matchup, this being a 1-up is pretty nice. We just slam this on the board, draw a card almost every other turn. In grinding matchups, this card is going to save your life. In most other matchups, you're just kind of like, whatever. Dark Dragoon Forte, I mean, we're playing Dragon. This is one of the strongest cards in Dragon. Why aren't we playing this? Because who doesn't want a Storm Aura 7/3 follower? Card is part of the reason why Dragon's so powerful. It makes it so you can top deck it. It's just so much damage your opponent always has to worry about. Next, Dark Angel Olivia card comes back here. This is probably one of the only few homes right now, other than Abyss, where Dow gets to shine a little bit. Obviously, draw a ditch. Any of these 2 effects together are just very good. Even if you need the Evo point, if you get an Evo point on 5, when you go to your turn 7 turn, play Sybil to go to 8. Go to 7, then go back to your turn to get 8 play points. That lets you Israfil Evo same turn on 8, which is pretty big. That's really nice about getting the Evo point from this card. Otherwise, draw ditch is always really good. Healing if need be into the aggro matchups is just good. All of these modes are just very, very powerful for what this card is. Shenlong, the banned card, restricted to 1. Obviously, we're playing it. Play the 1 of Evo. Card's good. Games you see it early on, you're very happy for the rest of the game. Games you don't see it, those are your like average games, and you're like, whatever. But a lot of games when you see Shenlong, I feel like you've kind of almost won the game, especially if you're already in a commanding position. Con Flag, once again, one of the big things we're worrying about is just getting aggroed out in a sense. So Con Flag here is just to clear those boards when there's standing followers we need to deal with. Clear the board this way. Once we hit into the 8 play points or higher turns, our Con Flag doesn't remove our own followers, so we can Con Flag the board to help clear the board if need be and still keep our followers alive, which is pretty big in my opinion. This card will become kind of bricky sometimes if you draw into multiple of it, especially early on, but the card is just so important in dealing with the board to stay within the game. I think you still got to play some amount of this card. I could see this card being cut down to like a 2 of if you feel like you have enough control pieces early on to live long enough to just take control of the game. All right, Israfil, this card is disgusting. This is part of the reason why we're playing Ramp Dragon, because we get to skip turn 7 essentially a majority of our games with 2 ramps basically. So we're going to be always like 2 turns ahead of our opponent, which is insane. Card obviously heals on play, has the ability strike, deal 3 damage to each enemy follower on the field, so it helps us clear the board. But the big part about this card, it being an 8/8, is scary. But if we're able to Evo it, which a lot of times we are, the strike becomes deal 5, so this will clear out most things. It's just Con Flag on a body, which is insane. On a 10/10 with that, if your opponent can't answer this after like 1 turn, you've probably won the game immediately on the spot. You do have some issues into like Forest where they can bounce stuff back to your hand. But on the bright side, Israfil does have the fanfare of healing 4 on play. So every time they bounce this back to your hand and you replay it, you at least get to heal a little bit every single time. And then that means you get to Evo it again to clear their board. Israfil is such a disgusting card. This is one of the few decks that you do get to play Israfil to, I feel like it's strong. Like the strongest it can be, essentially. All right, Bahamut. So this is in here because we need some late game powerhouses that answer the board. Also, it removes amulets on the board, so there's no cheeky plays against discard dragon that we have to really worry about once we hit Bahamut turns. Because we get a Bahamut and we do play one of the Evo, which is hidden down here, to clear the board essentially of anything any amulets we don't want as well. So yeah, Bahamut's really good because on turns 9 and 10, you can't normally play anything else with your big guys to clear up the board. Bahamut just answers everything. So if they play Israfil, you can Bahamut to remove their Israfil, which feels really good. Otherwise, card is just solid overall. It lets you answer the board while presenting a huge threat, and sometimes the Amulet Evo side is busted for you when you're playing in certain matchups. Finally, we play one of Genesis Dragon because, hey, we get a ramp twice a game, maybe even 3 times a game, who knows? And in those cases, that means our opponent is playing from so far behind that, like on their turn 6, they might have to start worrying about a Genesis Dragon and how to deal with that card. They're going to need wards up. It's just really annoying. Anytime your opponent taps out and is just like a little bit open, you gotta just slam Genesis Dragon, hit them for 10. Who doesn't love that feeling, for sure? It's mostly here for a threat. I could see some builds of the deck just cutting Genesis Dragon also and just playing like 3 Bahamuts, for example, or something else in the lower curve to like sure things up a little bit. But yeah, that is the deck overall. Once again, shout out to Pressure for being our Dragon master essentially in our playtest group and help develop these dragon decks. This is a very powerful deck. If you take this to the locals, you'll probably win a few locals pretty easily with this deck, especially if you're not hitting mirrors and stuff like that. The deck has some, I wouldn't say like horrible matchups, but there's some rocky matchups like Force, depending how many balances and control pieces they're playing into. Otherwise, a lot of times you can get to those later turns fairly easily. The incremental healing off of Dragon's Nest, Sybil, and even Israfil is enough, or even Shenlong, obviously, and Dark Angel Olivia. That's just enough to stay out of range of getting Elephant in, and not having to worry too much. You can take like a swing for 10 sometimes and feel completely fine, and then just destroy your opponent the following turn. But yeah, deck feels super solid overall. Try it out. I think you'll love Ramp Dragon. If you liked Ramp Dragon since set 1, you'll like Ramp Dragon now. It's just even better, in my opinion. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that. We'll be releasing some more deck videos this entire week, trying to cover all the classes and all the decks we can. So we hope you see you in those videos, that is. So yeah, later everyone.